This is Fall Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm John Buhler, staff writer, fansided.com. I'm joined today by a man who is never going to invite you to his birthday party unless it was in a Runza parking lot, who's never about to go to Culver's unless you can give him some cheese curds, and who is never going to drive his car in the snow unless it's below the Mason-Dixon line. Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com. How the hell are you?
Doing good, man. Look, I know we're a Runza podcast. We're big on the Runza, even though I'm not sure either of us have ever had it, but that's okay.
Oh, no.
Let me go ahead and tell you, the cheese curds at Culver's, just cheese curds in general, I'm a big fan. Big fan.
I mean, I'm semi-lactose intolerant. I'll eat it, but like it's better than a mozzarella stick. It stays warmer longer, and those things are delicious. Our former fan-sided colleague, Shay Corrigan, is yeah, she was like, yeah, you need to eat these Bueller rolls, so I'm not going to publish your stuff anymore, and that's how that was going.
Well, our current colleague is from Culver Country up there in Wisconsin, Robert Murray, and he hates cheese. So, you really can't trust these people anymore, is what I see.
Sometimes I'm convinced he never went outside.
He was just grinding scoops from a young age, and still to this day.
My friend the other day was like at a restaurant and asked like, "What's a good drink you have with rum and coke with rum?" And she's like, "Oh, rum and coke." And he's like, "Well, I'll have a beer." And I go up to him and I'm like, "Did her birth year start with one or two?"
Yeah, right. Absolutely. That reminds me very distinctly of one of my favorite memories with one of my buddies in high school. We were going camping one night, and he needed a pack of heaters, as you do when you're going camping. And he walks in, he goes, "What's your cheapest menthol cigarette?" And they go, "Pall Mall." And he goes, "Oh God, I'll just take a pack of Newport."
That was how people got addicted to those things. It's like, well, I'm not doing a Pall Mall, I'm doing some Newports. And
That's right.
we are going to do our Big Ten preview here on episode 100. Obviously, we fall started a little bit, but we're going to start out with the same four series of segments that we did with the SEC preview. We're going to do the satin kimono, and there definitely may be to start. So, Cody, who do you have in the Big Ten wearing the satin kimono?
So I would assume anyone who's listening to the podcast, and I would assume you too, are probably thinking I'm going to say Michigan here. And Michigan probably deserves a satin kimono, but I'm actually going with Iowa because the more I've seen from Iowa in the preseason, and maybe I'm just overreacting to social media, maybe I'm overreacting to fall practice, but I don't see this offense changing at all. Cade McNamara the other day went 7 for 20 for 20 yards with a pick six. And all reports from practice were like, "Oh, this was like one of the worst quarterback practices I've ever seen in my entire life. This was terrible. This was absolutely atrocious quarterback play." They asked Kirk Ferentz about it after the practice, and he said they asked him if this was like the norm or hoping he would say this is just a bad day, and he said, "No, this is basically what we've seen." So Cade McNamara might just suck. We talked about Tim Lester taking over for Brian Ferentz as the offensive coordinator. It's not going to matter if the quarterback play doesn't improve like even marginally. And as of right now, it doesn't seem like we're headed towards that place. We've talked about Iowa being a big loser in terms of losing divisions in the Big Ten. They're not going to be able to beat up on the West anymore. I have a really hard time seeing Iowa like their win total is set at 8.5. I have a hard time seeing them get to 9 or 10 wins if they have that level of quarterback play and have to play more teams from the old East.
Yes, we've talked about this. Iowa is the one program from the Big Ten that has hurt the most by going away with divisions. It's the Kentucky of the Big Ten. Honestly, they're kind of one of the same. Similarly, how we feel like Penn State and Ole Miss are kind of one of the same too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I kind of like Cade McNamara mostly because he wore those aviator sunglasses to the Orange Bowl and got his ass kicked by Georgia. But
Yes.
I will say that he's better than Deacon Hill, who is playing at I think Southern Utah now.
Yeah.
This is also the man that is responsible for getting McCaffrey to quit playing football and made Joe Milton the third transfer. So Kid McNamara, I think he's decent. I think he'll make it work. It'll be a better offense than what it's been, but like I still think he's kind of banged up, and maybe his injury
Mhm.
was far more significant there. I nearly put Iowa for mine. I consider this too, but like I think they're properly ranked about where they're going to be. Mine, shockingly, not at all, is Michigan. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have Michigan. I have Michigan as an 8-4 team, as with Rutgers. I think really not Rutgers. Yeah, Michigan, Rutgers, and Iowa and Maryland are all 8-4. Yes, that's how I've got
Okay.
that right there. It's a lot of beating each other up. And I feel with Michigan, there's just so much unknown offensively. Like until I can really trust Alex Orji to throw the football down the field, besides to Colston Loveland, that's their tight end's name, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the best tight ends in the country. Very good player.
Yes,
But if you can't get
probably
him the football, what does it matter?
probably going to win the Mackey or at least be a finalist for it. But like if you can only win one way, and that's with like ground and pound, play fantastic defense with like the Will Johnsons and the Mason Grahams of the world, and hand the ball off to Donovan Edwards and try to get Loveland on third and long, like that's great. But like if you get behind against like a USC or you get behind an Ohio State or you get behind a Texas, you're not coming back.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's kind of why like they're very much a fringe like playoff contender for me. They should not have been ranked nine, and we'll talk
No.
about that later. And the topic from Rim Five, but they should be ranked, but like they're the one outlier in the top 10. I'm like even more so than Florida State, where I'm like I don't think that I think that they're riding the coattails from last year considerably. So that's why I went with them for the satin kimono.
No, I mean that 9 and 10 range in the AP top 25, not to spoil a later segment, but that is the coattails range. Like I'm surprised Washington's not ranked 11th after that. Of course, Washington's not ranked at all, but like they're resting on the laurels of what they did last season, and like looking at this year's teams for both programs, like I just don't see it.
Now, you bring up a good point with Washington. Like I'm kind of down on them this year. I think most people are, but like we know that Jed Fish can Will Rogers can throw the football. We think Troy Moore can coach, and we have no idea if Alex Orji can throw the football.
Yeah, that's like you talk about the great unknown of the offense. It's can your quarterback actually throw the football? And that's not a very comforting unknown to have going into the season.
Yes, just before we move on to definitely maybe, was there anybody else that besides Iowa and Michigan you kind of considered for the kimono, or is that really just your big two there?
I think that's my big two. I gave a look at Nebraska. I'm still very torn on Nebraska, and that's where I came down on it the more I tried to assess it. Like I still don't know what to make of Nebraska. They the talent has been upgraded. There's no doubt about that. We both believe that Matt Rule is a good college football coach. We think he's a bit grating for sure, but like in terms of his skill level, in terms of what he's proven in the college football realm, he's worth it. But at the same time, like we've just seen Nebraska fall on its face so many times that it's really hard to get past that. Their talent level isn't still where it needs to be at the top of the Big Ten. So like, where does Nebraska fall on this? Like, it does feel like they're a little bit overhyped, but when you have a quarterback who is as talented as they say Dylan Raiola is, like maybe it's worth it, but we don't know that. And so Nebraska was like in this exercise came down as like the hardest team to figure out what they are.
Yeah, I think people are kind of viewing them as the Big Ten equivalent of Tennessee. We're like, oh, we got the right head coach, we got the right quarterback. Maybe they kind of go 10-2, like the final year with Hendon Hooker there. But I'm not
Mhm.
quite there. We've seen what Matt Rule's teams do. They usually go about 7-5, 7-6 in year two. Like
Mhm.
Nebraska have going to a bowl game in my win total projections, which we're gonna crowdsource all this stuff, or not crowdsource. I'm gonna take all of my sheets and I'm gonna have something out here next week once we get through the P4 here. Doing all this so no content is wasted, no content left behind here.
That's right, man. We saving private content.
Yeah, save private content. I called you content director, right? Not senior editor.
I honestly, that was like 5 minutes ago, dude. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't even know either. Like I forgot. I just keep forgetting everything all the time. I'm the anti John Lynch. I forget stuff constantly.
Dude, amen. Like my memory's been shot for about 5 years now.
Yeah, I got to start doing some of those mental stimulation games that we got to do for the dogs here. One of them's all about it, and one of them is not.
They're fine being a mental vegetable, and you know what? I respect it.
I'm just gonna rot and watch the Kardashians, and this is false diet. But
Oh my God.
my other one for the kimono that I thought was important, worth discussing, is Wisconsin. And again, you're
Mm,
higher on them than me because you've seen what Phil Longo can do offensively. you follow the ACC a little more closely than me. You know what Tyler Van Dyke is capable of in a good offense. And I think we both like Luke Fickell. I just think that the marriage of trying to go air raid in Madison, Wisconsin is like stupider than Germany trying to fight a war on two fronts. It's just not going to work.
So that I'm gonna go ahead and start the definitely maybe because Wisconsin's my definitely maybe team,
Oh
which is quite
no.
interesting here. So yeah, I like you said, I believe in Wisconsin, and one of the things about Phil Longo that I think makes him a more natural air raid fit for Wisconsin than potentially other air raid coordinators, other air raid offenses, is he still puts an emphasis on running the ball. Like we've seen North Carolina just produce a lot of like not high end running backs, but very good running backs. Like you look at guys like Ty Chandler, who came over from Tennessee, Amarion Hampton right now got his start under Phil Longo. Like we've seen these guys consistently come through and play very well. We know Wisconsin's always going to have a running back factory. They like Braylon Allen's gone. I'm not worried about it. Wisconsin's never not had a good running back because they recruit the offensive line well. I think that Tyler Van Dyke in a Phil Longo offense is almost a perfect marriage because we've talked about this with Tyler Van Dyke. One of the things that he struggles with is anticipation with his reads. You don't have to do that in a Phil Longo offense. It is look left, look right, there's your read. Like, and it's like everything is written out for you. Tyler Van Dyke has the physical tools to make any throw on the field. It's the mental processing where he struggles. This offense is going to eliminate that. I think that the only concern I would have and why it's a definitely maybe and not like I'm sure they're a playoff contender or anything like that is the fact that yeah, maybe they don't necessarily have the wide receiver talent to separate to get to be a 10-win team, but I do think this could be a 9-win team absolutely with the reinforcements they brought in, with the faith that I have in Luke Fickell and Phil Longo. Like we know the defense is going to be good, we know the offensive line is going to be good, and I think the offense as a whole is just going to be upgraded by having someone like Tyler Van Dyke running this offense.
I, I can get behind that a little bit. You are taking me higher. We can probably do that before the season starts.
Oh yeah.
This seems to be like our biggest divide to this point, which is great. We don't have to agree on everything. It's wonderful. You know, you love the color purple and it's a color.
It's a color for sure.
I guess my apprehension with Wisconsin in this is like for whatever, I guess maybe it's a Brett Bielema thing, just because like
Mm,
when I distinctly remember when he went to Arkansas, and I believe he was, I don't know if he was correct, was he before Chad Morris or after, but there was like they were trying to go from one extreme to another offensively, of
mhm.
like ground and pound to like let's do some just swing and poo Drew Lock air raid.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same reason why Jeff Collins failed at Georgia Tech, besides being an absolute goober. And I'm sorry he's on your team right now. It's like you got to be you can't go from like saying like, oh, I'm like 600 pounds and now I'm gonna be a bikini model. Like there's steps in between.
Yeah, no, you've got to work to get to that point.
But I like Luke Fickell. I know that they care a lot about this. It's a very strong athletic program. They've got guys and everything like that. And but then again, like the Big Ten West isn't anymore. I don't think that they're going to be hurt as much as Iowa is, but like I don't think it
Mhm.
helps.
No.
But so I'm a little more apprehensive on Wisconsin, but I see where you're behind them there. Uh, my definitely maybe is Rutgers.
Oh yeah. That was my second option, so I'm right there with you on that one.
I believe like we saw last year, we even saw it the year before, like 2 years ago when they almost went bowling but didn't quite. I know they did out of like because of like there was a COVID opt out and they lost like I think Wake and Jacksonville if I'm not mistaken. Wake, yeah, I think they replaced A&M and Jacksonville and lost to Wake. I think that's what that was.
Yeah, because A&M didn't have like enough players to field a team.
Right. They just go there for the money. They don't care.
That's right. School pride, what is that?
I did see something disturbing. The Athens Banner Herald, apparently Matthew Stafford doesn't like saying "Go Dogs," so people were really offended by that. And I'm like, I mean, you don't have to bark at people while you pump gas, but like, you know, be happy that your alma mater. Well, I guess he didn't graduate. To be honest with you,
Yeah, he's probably just pissed off that they didn't like give him an honorary degree.
I mean, I've told you about the one time I ran into him, but he was like, "I'm at effing Stafford at General Beauregard's."
Yes.
I don't care. He's really effing cool. He's a
He
cool
is.
dude.
If anyone has deserved or earned the right to say I'm Matt effing Stafford, it's Matt effing
Like Aaron
Stafford.
Murray's pretty cool too, but Aaron Murray's kind of a nerd, which is fine.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like Aaron Murray could have gotten into Georgia without football. Matthew Stafford, I don't know.
I, I can't do algebra, but I can sling this thing. Let me tell you.
Technically Stetson Bennett did get into Georgia like as regular, but I don't know if he graduated, but that's okay. A lot of really smart people don't graduate from that school.
A lot of people go to college for 7 years.
They're called doctors.
That's right.
But anyway, I guess to bring it back home with Rutgers, I think that the defense is really solid. Greg Schiano has shown a proclivity to coach up all three levels of the defense. He's got a really good ethos, getting a lot of people from the tri-state area, particularly making this New Jersey's football team. If they get slightly better quarterback play, I don't know if Wimsatt's still the starter, but like he's okay. Maybe he transferred, but like the close losses will become wins. Like if they play Michigan this year, which I'm not really, oh, maybe they do. How do I have Rutgers doing? So I have them losing at Virginia Tech to Washington, Wisconsin, and at USC, but then I have them beating teams like Nebraska, Maryland, Michigan State, UCLA. Like they don't have a really I don't actually, as a matter of fact, they don't play Penn State, Michigan, or Ohio State this year. So they've got a very soft schedule. Plus, we did this with the Bilco rankings with Bill Connolly. They return a lot of players. So I think the upside for Rutgers is pretty good. It wouldn't shock me if they finished the year ranked.
No, I really like this Rutgers team. Wimstad is gone. I have no idea where he's at, but they brought in Callie McManus, the kid from Minnesota, the
Oh yeah, he's
Greek
good.
rifle. And like I think he was wasted at Minnesota. Minnesota was just kind of an abject disaster last year on the offensive side of the ball. I think that Greg Schiano and this Rutgers team has a much better base for him to come in and kind of like show off his raw talent, develop that raw talent a little bit. I'm high on Rutgers. I mean, we have no reason to not believe it in Greg Schiano at this point, especially now that he has a manageable schedule. Like he put some scares into some teams last year as well with Gavin Winstead at quarterback. And I watched a decent amount of Rutgers football last year. Let me tell you, Wimstead is not good. He is quite bad, actually. And so, like, even getting marginal average quarterback play, like, that's going to elevate this team. And then you have a softer schedule on top of that. This is an 8-win team. Easy.
Yeah. I think it was the Penn State game that they lost. They were looking really good there for a while.
Mhm.
Also, Wasted in Minnesota. That sounds like a live album by the Replacements.
Dude, 100%. Like, wasted in Minnesota. That's the Trampled by Turtles live set for sure.
The Juicy Lucy got loose in this false start.
That's right. Dude, I could go for a Juicy Lucy. I understand it's only 8 a.m. local time, but I need a burger real bad.
I mean, me and the Arizona State podcast are going to get some sliders like 1,000 feet that direction.
God, I'm jealous. I'm quite jealous.
We are in the slot right now with food right now. The area we're in has some really good food, so we're very fortunate. So, anybody else you have for definitely maybe that needs or a contender for it?
I mean, I'll mention Nebraska again because I think they can fall in either category. And like, I'm trying to figure out which category I think they fall in. Like, there is a chance where this Nebraska team is quite good. And like, I think they could be an 8-9 win team. Like, I think you said it perfectly that making a bowl game, particularly in this stage of the Matt Rule cycle, is the most important thing. And we're probably going to see some growing pains from a true freshman starting quarterback. But at the same time, like, they have upgraded the talent at wide receiver. Their defense was very good last year. Their offensive line is supposed to be improved. So, like, they're checking the right boxes with a good head coach, with a quarterback who, frankly, is projected to be the best thing that they've seen since Tommy freaking Frazier. And so, like, this is going to be a team that could absolutely hit a ceiling that we're not really forecasting right now.
Yeah, Nebraska's somewhere in between of the definitely maybe in the satin kimono. They have to make a bowl this year. Anything else is not acceptable.
Yeah, exactly.
The other team that I considered is actually making a bowl, shockingly. That would be the Indiana Hoosiers.
Oh, baby.
I
Hit me
have
with
them
this.
I have them going 6-6. And I think Kurt Signetti is special. And I
Mhm.
think he's going to come in here fired up, JMU broke through, got to play at a bowl game, which they could like go to like the Sun Belt Championship. I think the fact that Nardog fired his brother at one of his two alma maters, which is weird. He's WVU and Pitt, which is pretty strange. But then again, it's like I mean I know people who are both dogs and bees, which is why are we doing this to ourselves?
What are we doing here? But yeah, I mean, we know Kurt Signetti can coach, and they also brought in one of my favorite quarterbacks in the country. I'm not sure he's kind of in the Cade McNamara camp of the injuries may have caught up to him. I hope not. But they brought in Curtis Rourke from Ohio, the Bobcats, and he was one of the best quarterbacks in G5. Like, if he can come in and really elevate the play at Indiana, that's going to be good. Kurt Signetti brought in a lot of guys from JMU. So, like, this roster is going to look a lot different. I have Indiana's another team. There's a lot of teams in this kind of in this range for the Big Ten where I'm having a really hard time trying to figure out where I'm coming down on them. And Indiana's one of them just because there's so many new faces.
They're kind of like Mississippi State in the SEC, where like there are wins to be had. Indiana's schedule is much softer than the Bulldogs, but like there's certainly a pathway for both of them to go bowling. So the wins I have for Indiana are FIU, Western Illinois, Charlotte, sorry, Biff, at Northwestern, Washington, and Purdue. Those are all winnable. I
Hmm.
think you could losses. The only one I know for sure you're going to have is at Ohio State, but like maybe you get Michigan, probably not, but you can win Michigan State, even though that's a rivalry game. Nebraska, maybe. Maryland, and then at UCLA. I mean, there's a there's a chance they could even go 9-3. Like it's the schedule is that soft. Like it's they could also go 3-9 again, but I also think that like the offense is going to be better than it was what it
Hmm.
was under with Tom Allen, where it's just the guys from Salad Fingers running into a door with no hands.
Yeah, Tom Allen had definitely run his course. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, we're not going to scratch any rusty spoons here, but we are going to move on to our next topic here. We are going to go to because it's getting hot in here. I mean, I'm not actually sweating. I just got out of the shower. But what Big Ten coaches entering this season are on the hottest of seats, and who all could get fired? So, where are you kind of leaning with this? This was a little bit more interesting of an exercise than even with the SEC.
Yeah, I came down with a surprising answer because I was surprised kind of looking at this, but the more I think about it, I think Deshaun Foster's on a really hot seat this year. I
Ooh,
under
okay.
I understand he's a first year head coach, and I understand he's a legacy. Like he played there, had a great career there, has had some assistant coaching experience there as well. But when you look at why he was hired, it was because they were so late in the cycle that they really had no choice but to do something like promote internally or promote someone who has ties to the program, which they did with the Sean Foster. But it's someone with no experience, someone whose roster has been completely depleted, and who's taking over a team that Chip Kelly just didn't like recruiting for. So, like, you have a lot of things working against you. You're moving to this new conference. We think that USC is going to be a potential playoff contender. And now we're looking at the other team from LA coming over, and there's a potential that they go 3-9. There's a potential they go 4-8. That's going to be very bad optically as you switch conferences. And given that the fact that he almost felt like well, I guess we've got to do something type of hire. I do wonder if he's on a hot seat and if like that, if the bottom completely falls out, if they're like, give him the I'm totally blanking on the guy's name at Mississippi State, bringing them up
Zach
again.
Arnett. Zach
Zach
Arnett,
Arnett,
yes.
yeah. That's kind of what I see this as potentially being because like it was very quickly apparent that Zach Arnett was not the guy. I think there's a potential that we see it's very apparent that Deshaun Foster is not the guy for UCLA.
Maybe. In that case, would you just promote Eric Bieniemy from within?
Potentially, yeah. And I think that's probably a potentially a better option.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I wasn't gonna like Zach Arnett anybody in this exercise, but like if anybody it's gonna happen to in the P4, it's Deshaun Foster because of how late he got hired in the circumstances with like he was gonna go be on Antonio Pierce's staff there in Las Vegas. I think he was gonna be
Hmm.
the running backs coach and co-offensive coordinator or something like that. And then but again, an opportunity of a lifetime opens up at alma mater and you have to go. Um UCLA is a little bit screwy right now. I think really depends on what Casey Wasserman and Troy Aikman want to do as boosters and everything like that.
Right.
No longer have Bill Walton boosting or whatever in a, we all know Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's never given a cent.
No, and I'm not even sure Bill Walton did, but he provided tremendous vibes. Rest in peace to the GOAT always.
Rest in peace to the good. Yeah, that one I didn't even think about Deshaun Foster. There were two that I kind of gone back and forth on, but I ultimately settled on PJ Fleck.
Yeah. And I think that's
Over,
probably the obvious choice.
it was him or Ryan Walters, and I decided to go with PJ Fleck because I have Minnesota going uh 4-8 with only one win in the conference, and I believe that is over Minnesota. Yeah, that would be at UCLA. Like I,
Okay.
I feel like I feel like they got really lucky with winning Floyd last year, and I think Kirk Ferentz would rather die than lose that game again. And honestly, during Floyd week, we got to do just like Nova came with some Pink Floyd.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a given.
Time. Who's time? Kirk Ferentz, it's time for you to go home.
It's time for you to go, brother.
We could do like time, echoes, money, comfortably numb. That would be good.
Oh my God.
Another brick in the wall. There's another brick in the wall. Mario Cristobal. He doesn't have a brain.
No, absolutely not.
But yeah, I just think that like the expectations of what he did, I think is just kind of the whole like shtick is just kind of run its course and everything. And he had that really good season, I think in 2019, where I think Minnesota was like a week away from being a serious playoff contender. But it just seems like all momentum has kind of been lost there. As far as Ryan Walters goes, I think Purdue might be the worst team in the Big Ten this year. I have the Boilermakers going 2-10 with not and going over in the conference. Ryan Walters was a hotshot coordinator there on Brett Bielema's staff at Illinois. Obviously, it's a big opportunity, but like in between Joe Tiller and Jeff Brom, Purdue sucked. Like it was a bunch of Daryl Hazel nonsense, and it's kind of gone back to that. And even though I said Ryan Walters would be a good candidate to replace Deion Sanders, like if it hits the fan there, I'm kind of wondering if he got this job a little bit soon. And that's not to say that he's not going to be a head coach again. Kind of like Mike Locksley at New Mexico. It's like, I don't think you're ready for this. And then now in Maryland, he's proven to be a 7-8 win team there at College Park. So that's kind of the first two I had down for that. Anybody else you have that could be on the hot seat?
I have a question for you real quick. You said you had Minnesota winning three non-conference games. Does that mean you have them beating North Carolina Tar Heels in the season opener?
Um, I think so. I'm
I mean,
sorry.
that's fair. Just checking in on the Heels, see how low we are on them, and yeah, that's probably right though. The other one that I wanted to throw out there, and we already touched on him, Kirk Ferentz. And I think we've talked about Iowa. If the move from the Big Ten West is like catastrophically bad for this program, we've already heard kind of rumbles from around the fan base, from around college football that, maybe it's time for Kirk Ferentz to step away. I don't think they're like there is no shot in hell that they're gonna fire Kirk Ferentz like outright. It's going to be a hey man, you should probably get the hell out of here and retire type of situation. But like there is a chance that he is gone after this season, and I don't think it's going to be by his own volition. I think he would coach until he died. Like I think he would die on the sidelines, absolutely. But like I do think that like we are trending towards a position where Iowa might be getting tired of the Kurt Ferentz stick to some degree, and I don't know. I don't think it's gonna like I'm giving Iowa the satin kimono, so I do think it's going to be a rough year by Iowa standards, and if that happens, then I think those cries are only going to get louder.
Okay, we're idiots. Apparently the AD at Iowa did take it is Beth Getz.
Oh,
So,
okay, nice.
but this parlays very nicely into my last three. It's the exact same issue. It's a relatively new AD. Yes, Kirk Ferentz had been there since what 98, 99, the longest tenured P4 head coach. But again, she didn't hire him. As a matter of fact, she fired his son. So
Yes.
so for those out there, like this matters. This matters in every profession. We have nice, good bosses here at Fansided Admitted Media, but other places aren't so lucky. It could be in any profession. The new boss is, that can be a problem. And that is exactly where I have with my last three, who I think are up for it. That would be Jed Fish, Ryan Day, and Lincoln Riley. Jed Fish, I have Washington going 6-6. Again, Troy Dannon hired him, and it's Pat Chun. Maybe that doesn't work. Plus, there could be pressure, and he could be like a bad culture fit. Maybe Florida looks too enticing. There's just too much pressure. He's like, okay, I'm out.
Mhm.
Lincoln Riley, it's not Mike Bohner anymore. It's Jim Cohen, who came from Washington. And then it's like, okay, we're really tired of your cocky attitude. I mean, we haven't figured this out. Who's more unlikable, Lincoln Riley or Matt Rule in the Big Ten? It's like,
I think it's still Lincoln Riley, but it's a small margin.
yeah, it's just there's no way this is going to end well for him. Like he's going to get humbled horrifically. Like he's going to get tarmacked. Something embarrassing like that is going to happen to him in the next 3 years. I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's USC or your Cowboys or my Falcons, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And then Ryan Day with just the same amount of pressure with Ross Bjork coming in.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily feel that Matt Rule's under the same pressure there with Troy Dannon because I don't know. I still think it's so weird that Trev Alberts left his alma mater to go to the A&M.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like it's like a crazy trade. It's like what Gene Smith retires, and then Ross Bjork goes to goes to Ohio State, and then Trev Alberts goes to Texas A&M. Troy Dannon goes to
Just musical chairs, man.
it's wild. Like it's like the Andy Enfield thing with like going to SMU. It's
Yeah.
or Nick Saban retires and Pete Limbo is now the head coach of the Buffalo Bulls.
As we all expected, the dominoes were right there before.
So I guess to put a bow on this section right here, of those four that we mentioned who are like good coaches but have like the new ADs between Ferentz, Day, Rule, Ferentz, Day, Riley, and Fish, like who's the most likely to be fired?
To be fired is an interesting question because I think to leave it's Jed Fish. I think we're both pretty dug in on the idea of Jed Fish leaving for Florida. Like I think that's kind of just what we expect at this point, but I don't think he's going to be fired by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. I think in terms of firing, it's tough, man. It's between Kirk Ferentz and Ryan Day for me because I think Matt Rule is going to get leeway. I think Lincoln Riley is another one who again, we're kind of high on USC, so I don't think like it's going to be a lack of success. Like I do think there's a chance that Lincoln Riley could leave. Like you mentioned the Cowboys, like there's a chance that job opens up. If it does, that's going to be enticing. Yeah, they're going to offer Lincoln Riley, would almost guarantee it. So I think it does come down to me between Day and holy crap, I just
Ferentz.
blanked on the name. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Kirk Ferentz, the guy I mentioned in this conversation. I would probably end up going with Kirk Ferentz, and that's solely based on the idea that I think Kirk Ferentz's team is going to be substantially worse this year.
I think there's realizing that Beth Getz is still the AD that changes things, so it might be Ferentz for me, but I would have to go with Lincoln Riley just because like I feel Ross Bjork's like good at least like give this a year or two with Ryan Day, even with the pressure. It just new. He's always had good catches, for all lack of a better word, like, Hugh Freeze, Jimbo Fisher, Brian Day, like people who've won, been very successful at times
Yeah.
here. And I feel with Jed Fish, again, it's kind of brand new. He may kind of more or less leave. But Lincoln Riley could just be a huge a-hole. Jim Cohen's like, hey, I hate him more than getting root canals.
Yeah, I don't have time to deal with this. Let's get on out of here.
But we do have time to deal with this. Yes, we're going to be going to our next segment, which is we're going to be coming to you live from Eric Crouch's couch. Which
Mhm.
3 to 5 Big Ten players are our picks to be serious Heisman contenders, as well as a sleeper? So we did this really good last time. 1-1, 2-2, 3-3. Let's go. Who's your pick to number one pick to win the Heisman or contend out of the Big Ten?
Spoiler alert, as of right now, that's my number one pick in the country, and that's Dillon Gabriel. We saw the numbers that Bo Nix put up in this offense last year with the talent that has upgraded around Dillon Gabriel now. And I just think Dillon Gabriel's a better college quarterback than Bo Nix. Like I think he offers you more. I think he does more. And now you're going to put him in an offense that not only does that, but also gives you the ability to run it on easy mode. Like this is going to be otherworldly type production coming from this kid. The only thing that's going to stop him from being in New York, in my opinion, is an injury. And outside of that, like I just don't see a world where Dillon Gabriel, with the player that we've seen, comes into this offense with the talent around him, with the success that Oregon is going to have, and that Dillon Gabriel isn't one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year.
I'm right there with you. He's my number one pick, and he's my pick to win the Heisman right now.
Yeah.
It's also you mentioned the same thing that Will Stein. He's about to be a head coach. I've tied him to Virginia if Tony Elliott fails. Like he'll get like a lower tier P4 job. But Kenny Dillingham, well, he got to go to alma mater, but obviously with Will Stein, that's not happening at Louisville because we really like Jeff Brom.
Hmm.
But like if Cincinnati were to open up, or Virginia, or if Alex Golesh were to go to like South Carolina and South Florida opens up, Will Stein would get a job like that, like a very high tiered G5 job or a very low tiered P4. So
Yeah.
like if like a Bill O'Brien going to Boston College kind of a thing. So yes, I'm really all in on Dillon Gabriel. I think he's going to be fantastic, and I think he's going to push his way. I don't think he's a first round pick, but I think he's going to be a top 75 pick in the draft, and we'll turn heads at the Senior Bowl because he's a dinosaur. He's so
He,
old.
he's so old and he's also so tiny. Like he's like his size is going to be a problem for him at the NFL level. Like I think he's listed at 6 foot. He's probably like 5'10", if that. Like he's not a large human being.
If he gets drafted, what's like a team you think he could go to? First team I think of is the Seahawks. I think that's a fit for him.
I think of the 49ers. So staying in the NFC
Hmm.
West, like putting him on the 49ers, having him back up Brock Purdy, like I think that makes a lot of sense. Like someone who has like obvious limitations, but an offense that plays around those limitations and puts you in the best positions to succeed. Because that's exactly why Purdy is being successful in the NFL.
Yeah, very similar comp and a positive. I mean, I
Mhm.
know you hate Brock Purdy more than Duke, but like it's yeah, I think that's a pretty good fair one. I think he'll be in the NFL for a while, at least as like a backup. Maybe a
Yeah.
coach, but we gotta hope he graduated from one of his small market universities.
I know one thing. He's going to be like a preseason god. Like everyone's just going to like fawn over him in the preseason, and then he's just not going to see the field in the regular season.
You're damn right. So, do you want to show your number two, or do you want me to go with my number two?
Good with your number two, because my number two and three are actually combined. And you'll understand that very shortly.
Two, I have Travion Henderson.
Okay.
I just
So
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and spoil that. I have my two and three are Quinshaw Judkins and Travion Henderson together.
and I have Quinshon Judkins four. So let's just talk about them.
Yeah. And I'm putting them together, lumping them together because we don't know how this hierarchy is going to shake out. If you look at the Heisman odds, Will Howard has like substantially better odds than both of these guys. I don't understand that. This is going to be a run heavy offense. Will Howard is going to run, sure, but like you brought in Quinshaw Judkins with already one of the best running backs in the country in Travion Henderson. We're not going to throw the ball. This isn't going to be an air raid. Yes, they're going to throw the ball. They have Jeremiah Smith, they have Emeka Buka, but like I don't think when you bring in Chip Kelly, who loves a run-based offense, like has at every level that we've ever seen him coach at. Like you even go back to Marcus Mariota in Oregon, like he was running a lot. That's why he was able to get the Heisman Trophy. Was his rushing ability on top of the air raid offense. Like I just don't think Will Howard is going to be the focal point of this offense. I think these two running backs are. I just don't know how they're going to divvy up carries, so it's really hard to separate them on who's going to be like the bell cow because I don't think there's necessarily going to be a bell cow, and they're both talented enough to put up ridiculous numbers even in a split role.
That's exactly kind of where I was feeling with them too. Like, I don't know if either are really a contender for the Duke Walker because it's not going to be like a one man show predominant like we would see with Ollie Gordon second there in Stillwater or even Trevor Etienne there in Athens, where it's like it's clearly one. These are both running backs are just as good as them. I mean, maybe Devin Neal at Kansas is another guy who's in that sort of vein. Danny Martinez in Miami, but like these guys are absolutely bona fide. I'm not buying into the Will Howard hype as well either. Just spoiler, he didn't even make my cut. Like I'm just out on him.
No,
But he's the Jackson Dart of this conference.
that's right. Yeah. Shouts to the Jackson Dart Memorial Award that we're giving out in this segment.
But this goes back to Chip Kelly. It's like Chip Kelly's sitting there. He's like, "So you mean to tell me I can coach Will Howard, Quinshaw Judkins, and Travion Henderson, also some I never had in Ryan Day, or I can stay in UCLA and coach Ethan Garbers." So
And you're also telling me I don't have to recruit? Hell yeah. Sign me up, brother.
I mean, imagine going on 247 and says like this is somebody's primary recruiter. It says like Chip Kelly. Like, no, it's not.
Talk about we're living in a simulation. That's when we know we're absolutely living in one.
That's so wacky. So you're two and three, and then my third would be Drew Aller. I have him there for
Okay.
Penn State. I think Penn State's got a very good, very Penn State season, which will be good enough to make the playoff in the situation. I think the talent there in Happy Valley is tremendous, but again, quarterback, blue chip player coming out. I think he's Andy Koltenek. He's going to put him in a position to succeed. As much as I may like Nick Singleton at running back, as much as we may like Julian Fleming's upside at receiver or Abdul Carter at linebacker, I think it's Drew Aller's driving the bus there. So that's why I've got him three.
So I have Drew Aller at 4, so it ties perfectly. Yeah, everything you said, like we know the kid is talented. Like he, even with last season being a disappointment, he still flashed moments where it's like, oh, this is why he was a 5-star. This is why people thought he was the real deal. He didn't put it all together, and we freely admit that. That's the reason Penn State went 10-2 again, is that Drew Aller did not put it all together. But like you said, one of the big reasons I still maintain that we didn't see him elevate even more was the receiving core was lacking. Like they had trouble separating. You watch the film, there's a lot of times where they're just blanketed in coverage and Drew Aller's trying to force something. The receiving core is improved this year. It should be a lot better. You have you have a good offensive line. You have a rushing attack that's going to protect him. I think Drew Aller is going to make a lot of people who wrote him off last season feel kind of dumb this year. I think he's going to take a big leap forward.
I will tell you, I think he's a better overall player than JJ McCarthy. I think they were both 5 stars coming out. I just think he's not a raging dork, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, but rest up, JJ. We're sorry about your meniscus injury.
I do feel bad for him for that. The Vikings, they're so screwed. And
Dude, I saw someone put, the meme that's like, God, why do you keep giving me your toughest battles? And it's like, how are you still alive? Yeah, that was I saw that with the Vikings after the McCarthy injury.
I've seen that too as a Falcons fan, and I know you've seen that as a Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
Just because again, Kirk Cousins quarterback's my NFL team. Well, the Blog and Dirty podcast just had episode 3 going live yesterday. Did that just in time before Matthew Judon got traded over there, and I was literally attempting to do cartwheels in the streets, even though I'm overweight and I'm not athletic. We're not physically in shape at all anymore. It was a sight to behold.
Hey, dude, I've never been able to do a cartwheel even in my athletic peak. So, no fault on you there.
I was gasping for air, and I'm looking down. I'm like, thank God I didn't crap my pants.
Honestly, at our age, that's the biggest win. We didn't crap our
Yeah,
pants.
I know that's what it's all about. We're getting to that point in our age where like we just start decaying as human beings. It's like, yep, back in the caveman times, you should already be dead.
Unfortunately so, yes. Oh my God.
But I will say that with the Vikings, like it's not going to end well for Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Like at least George Payton with the Broncos, who has new eyebrows, is figuring out like, oh, let's get David Shaw on our staff. Oh, let's extend Quinn Miners. Even Bo Nix, who I think has limitations, like there's a plan. They're all going in the right direction, and they're trying, and they're
Mhm.
not. They're not trying to do some risk-free nonsense with the Vikings. Like, oh, Sam Darnold's going to start for 17 games. Like, no, he's not, because I'm not, and he's not either. Are you
Yeah,
kidding
no,
me?
I mean, like I have this like weird suspicion. We're getting off the rails a little bit, but I have this like weird suspicion creeping into my head that Sam Darnold's gonna like have like a really good season and then someone's gonna pay him like a ridiculous amount of money. I'm just like trying to paint like the funniest narrative I possibly can. Like Sam Darnold leads the Vikings to the playoffs. They don't re-sign him because they have McCarthy. And some team pays Sam Darnold like $25 million a year, and he comes out and he's just Sam Darnold again. And I think that belief is just literally coming from Kevin O'Connell, who I think is a tremendous head coach.
The app's going to sign him. Like, besides the Vikings.
Honestly, just to cause myself personal pain, the Cowboys let Dak Prescott walk and then sign Sam Darnold.
God, I'm so sorry.
Dude, I mean, like I just live in pain. It's fine. It's completely fine.
You're right, right?
I know it's tough. It's tough out
So
here.
I know. So who is your fifth guy?
So fifth guy I have is you can probably I feel like I've been using the fifth slot as a second sleeper, but I'm going with Dylan Raiola. If
Okay.
Nebraska is going to be, this is goes back to what I said in the SEC show, where a lot of times when you get to this point, I look at path. And if Nebraska elevates and is an 8 or 9 win team, like you said, we've seen like tremendous quarterback play be rewarded with for a 9-3 team if it's that good. And the narrative of leading Nebraska back to not just a bowl game, but like if you're an 8 or 9 win team in the Big Ten, you're a fringe playoff contender. If you lead Nebraska back to that point, it's going to be Dylan Raiola, the reason that's behind that. Like there's no question about that. This season hinges on what he is as a true freshman. But if he is that, like if he is the goods right out of the gate, he is going to get that type of national love.
That's right there with, you've been very consistent with this. You're thinking like Nebraska could be like Tennessee. Like this is the
Hmm.
Hendon Hooker sort of thing, but obviously a true freshman versus a dinosaur. But like, yeah, I think this is a very pro dinosaur podcast, by the way. Except
Absolutely.
if except Octos, they're doing stuff. Bush, they're not watching the show anyway. They're
Hopefully
out there in
not
the yard.
driving.
They might be. Uh, the world's your freeway if you want it to be.
Jesus.
But I think that's fair. I think I didn't have Raiola as my fifth sleeper, but I'll kind of bundle my two, my five and six. So my fifth pick was Evan Stewart at
Mhm.
new wide receiver at Oregon, and then Zachariah Branch was my sleeper, the wide receiver at USC. I think that Oregon's going to have a fantastic year. I think with Dillon Gabriel being my pick to win the Heisman right this instant. Again, that can change before we do this because I still got to go through all the stuff with the ACC and the Big 12, do
Mhm.
the due diligence there. But like, it's like the kind of like the Mac Brown, not Mac Brown, Mac Jones, Devontae Smith sort of thing with Alabama. Where like they're inseparable. It's the same sort of thing. So I think plus in Will Stein's offense, they're just gonna give him the ball a ton. So yeah, pretty high there on Evan Stewart, and then with Zachariah Branch, I think he's gonna be special. Miller Moss is kind of like the Brady Cook of the Big Ten. It's like he's good, but I guess they're just better quarterbacks here. I think Miller Moss will be what we want Cade McNamara to be. And I
Mhm.
think just Zachariah Branch is the kind of receiver that like will enable Lincoln Riley to be continue to be the jerk that he is.
So, funny enough, my sleeper is Miller Moss.
Okay.
And but I think it ties into the same thing. Like one of the reasons I'm getting higher on USC or have been throughout the offseason leading up to the start of the season is the point I've made a million times at this point. Whenever Lincoln Riley has a quarterback who just operates his offense, we've seen it be wildly successful. And we saw in one game from Miller Moss, and I understand it's a super small sample size, but he operated the offense and threw 6 touchdowns against Louisville. Like that's just what we saw happen. And I just think that when you have a Zachariah Branch, when you have the talent around USC, when you have an offensive line that is supposed to be improved from what it was last year, Miller Moss can just sit back there and pick it apart in Lincoln Riley's offense. Like we can give Lincoln Riley a lot of crap. His offense still works when
Oh
it's
yeah.
running at full effectiveness. Like it absolutely still works. Like that's why he's a jerk is because he knows his stuff is good. And so like with Miller Moss running this, I see a world where he just puts up some ridiculous numbers, gets USC into playoff contention, and we've seen Lincoln Riley quarterbacks consistently get to New York. Like that's just kind of what they do. And so like I think we're in a situation where we could see that again.
I mean, or he could just be Spencer Rattler. But either way, Spencer Rattler's pretty good too. But
I don't think well at that point in Spencer Rattler's career, Spencer Rattler was a raging D bag, like a raging a hole, and maybe that made it should have made him fit a little bit better with Lincoln Riley, but like at the same time, like Miller Moss to me, like have you ever heard the guy speak? Because I sure haven't, and like I feel like he's a guy who's just like puts on the pads and goes out there and does what he's told. And Spencer Rattler was like, I'm the best quarterback that's ever played the game of football before.
I mean, he is Barry McCocketer's son. Don't ever forget that.
That's right.
He did look good in his preseason debut versus the Cardinals. He's from the Valley. I think he's from Gilbert. No,
Yeah,
that's
I
what
think that's right.
yeah, Gilbert or Mesa, like Purdy's from there too. But yeah, he looks good. Apparently his mom's like a teacher and his dad is uh a noted Twitter personality.
Personality. Yeah.
So let's tie a bow on this. So recap who we have, then we'll go on to our fourth topic. So for the Heisman contenders, number one for me, I've got Dillon Gabriel, quarterback out of Oregon. Number two, I have running back Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Three, Penn State quarterback Drew Aller. Four, running back for Ohio State Quinshon Judkins. Oregon wide receiver Evan Stewart's five. And my sleeper pick is wide receiver for USC Zachariah Branch.
Yeah, and so I also have Dillon Gabriel number one. Two, three, kind of interchangeable is the Ohio State running back duo of Judkins and Henderson. Four, I have Drew Lar. Five, I have Dylan Raiola, and then my sleeper is Miller Moss. I do want to say, like, I do like the Evan Stewart pick. I just worry that Gabriel's going to suck up so much oxygen because of the numbers he's going to put up that Stewart, maybe they both get invited to New York, but I think that Gabriel would still have the edge if you put them side by side.
Yeah, also I did consider Miller Moss and Dylan Raiola as well in this exercise. But we got to move on because it's time. I keep clicking on the wrong tabs, but playoffs. You kidding me? Our picks to reach the Big Ten title bout, the AQ pick, and who else can make the playoff this year? This is so easy, isn't it?
It it's very easy, although I think I might have a little surprise for you.
Oh,
So I have Oregon over Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game.
oh. Well, I have Ohio State over Oregon, so we disagree. But yeah, I have like Ohio State going 12 and 0, and I have Oregon going 11 and 1. But when I was doing this, I realized the game's in Eugene, so maybe it could go the Ducks' way. And I think that's probably where your head's at, and that's really fair.
Yeah, and I just think like my one concern with Ryan Day at this point, I know he's a good coach, but I don't know if he's a great coach. I think Dan Lanning might be a great coach. And I know we saw Oregon lose to Washington in the two biggest games of their season last year, but at the same time, like they were competitive. It wasn't like you got run off the field. We've seen Ryan Day in big games get run off the field consistently over the past 3 years, specifically the Michigan game. Like Michigan just owned Ohio State consistently. And so I do wonder if Oregon's going to be able to go in there. And I'm not saying that they're going to be able to do what Michigan did in terms of like bullying them, but they might because Oregon has one of the best offensive lines in the country. Oregon has one of the best defensive lines in the country. And Ohio State is very adequate in both of those aspects as well. But even when they've been adequate or above previously, Michigan has still pushed them around. It's that physical mentality. We know Dan Lanning is going to bring that to the table. So, like, I'm giving Oregon just a slight edge based on a coaching advantage. Because I think when you look at these rosters, they're not that far apart in terms of talent. Like, they're both two of the best rosters in the country.
I think that's fair. I think we did have said before that we think Dan Lanning's the best coach in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State's roster is a little bit better, but yeah, I can understand the coaching concerns that can be had there. I mean, hell, I put Ryan Day kind of on the hot seat just because of the expectations. But
Right.
again, we're talking about like the second and third best team in the country, like two teams that are like
Right.
going to make the playoff anyway. Whoever doesn't win this is going to probably be the 5 seed. It's like it's
Yeah,
pretty,
exactly.
yeah. So that's good here. I guess to moving on a little bit. Who else? Like, how many teams do you think are playoff contenders? I had three more.
I only had two more, and that shocked me a little bit. But and I'm sure my two are on your list, but it's Penn State and USC for me. And I think those are the
Yes.
other two that I have on there. And I think that comes down to I'm gonna assume and take a guess. Your third is Michigan.
Yes. Mhm.
And I just have a very hard time with the state of the Big Ten, trusting a team to get into playoff contention that I have such big question marks about on offense. Like, I understand that their defense is going to be great, but when you look at playoff contenders, especially in recent years, that only takes you but so far. You have to have some juice on offense. And I just worry that Michigan is not going to have anything. Like, I just worry that the juice is not going to be there. Like, I think Donovan Edwards is a good player, but I think he also took a step back from 2022 to 2023. Like, I think he was a worse player last year than we saw the year prior. So, what version of Donovan Edwards we're going to get. And that's kind of like your calling card because, like, as good as I think Colston Loveland is, if Alex Orji can't get him the ball, does it matter? No, it doesn't. We've seen it at Iowa countless times with TJ Hawkinson, with George Kittle, with all these Sam Laporta. Like, those guys are tremendous players, but it doesn't matter because their quarterback couldn't get him the ball at Iowa. And then we saw what they did in the NFL. I think we could see a similar thing with Colston Loveland this year. I just worry about that offense tremendously.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Again, yeah, it's the same three that I had. So I have Penn State going 10 and 2 because it's a driving academy.
Always, baby.
And then I had USC, Michigan, Rutgers, and Iowa and Maryland all going 8 and 4. But I think just the brand equity there with USC and Michigan, like if they go 9 and 3, they're kind of in that same boat that I felt about Alabama and Mizzou, where like that's borderline. But if they were in the SEC, no chance. Like
No.
they're the same level as like A&M or Auburn to me. But that kind of goes to the point. I'll probably unpack this a little bit more in the written part of this for the preview. Big Ten's going to get three teams in, maybe four, not five.
No, I agree with that completely. Like, I think that's where we're at. I think, honestly, I think it's getting increasingly more likely that it's going to be three.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, we think Notre Dame probably is, and it wouldn't shock me if the ACC or the Big 12 got two teams in. Like
Yeah.
it just depends on how because they have teams there that I think could do it. Like they're ranked high enough where it's possible.
Mhm.
There's not going to have to be. You're not going to be having like a UCF making a climb or like or like Louisville having to make a climb. Like if Clemson's at like 14 and they do what they need to do, they'll get in. And same with Miami at
Yeah.
like 19 or whatever they are. But yeah, I think that it's the top of the Big Ten's pretty easy. The middle, that's all over the place. That's where I think it's going to be the most fun in that league, is because like we don't really know who is the how to slot like what 4 to like 13. Like it could be any number of directions.
You're not kidding, man. And it kind of goes back to the Indiana conversation that we had. Like there's so many new parts for so many of these teams. Like Indiana, Michigan State, Wisconsin has new parts with Tyler Van Dyke. Michigan has so many new parts as well. USC, like what are they in the Big Ten? What are they with DeAnton Lynn taking over the defense? What are they without Caleb Williams? Like you keep going down the list, and there's so many new parts and questions that we have about these teams that it creates a really interesting dynamic. And like, yeah, you're right. Like honestly, the middle of the Big Ten feels like I think how we feel about the entirety of the Big 12. Like
Yes.
it's gonna be fun, but we like prognosticating it right now is very, very freaking difficult.
It's the same thing we kind of feel about the top 8 of the SEC. So it's the same
Mhm.
sort of thing. I guess I had two more thoughts to discuss before we move on about two teams that aren't going to be going anywhere that are not going to be good. I had Michigan State going 4-8. I like Jonathan Smith. I like Aiden Childs, but I just feel like they got to get players there, and it's not going to happen this year. They will upset somebody significantly this
Mhm.
season. I'm trying to think who I had them upsetting, but like, and again, I could be wrong. Like I have them. That's no, I have them beating Michigan State, so I guess they're beating themselves. So I don't
Maybe that's
know.
Michigan. Maybe I'm upsetting Michigan.
Yeah, maybe, or I think it might actually be Indiana. I think there
Oh, okay.
that might be who it is. Now that I look at that, yeah, it's Indiana. There we go. I was figuring that out. And
Okay.
then I am also an idiot. I was like, yes, Northwestern can't be that bad. Well, I have Northwestern going 2-10 with one win. I think the fact that they're playing like an Azkaban and not at Wrigley is just going to give them, it's going to be like a completely just dead team this year. It's going to hurt them like it hurt Hawaii. And one of the most unfortunate things about Northwestern, even under Pat Fitzgerald, is like they'll have a great year every 3 years and they'll have a year of suck somewhere in between. I think that's coming
Mhm. No, I
just
could
because the
definitely see it. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
schedule's rough.
Schedule's tough. And like you said, they're not going to have a home field advantage. Not that they have a huge one to begin with, but even then, like whatever home field advantage they did have is now gone because you're playing at a practice facility. Honestly, they should just like if they start going to the 2-10 trajectory, they should just make them play at the White Sox Stadium, because that's going to be the same caliber of team.
Um, Mark Carmen, how do you feel about getting cloned? You can vend and watch the game and retain everything. You're gonna be the smartest man on earth, but there's gonna be 1,000 of you.
That's right.
That'd be really Carmageddon there, man. Oh my God. But I know he can read, but I don't know if he's ever read from Board Manual's manual. Yes, we're gonna move on to our fifth topic with our second wave reactions of the AP Top 25 poll. Just a few things of like how is seeing this poll kind of reshaped how we feel about a few teams. This came out on Monday right after we finished recording at about noon Eastern, 10 Mountain Time, 11 Central, 9 Pacific, because we are a multi time zone brand here. We are the Big Ten of websites.
That's right. Oh God.
Anywhere you want to start with the AP Top 25 that you think needs discussion?
I think we got to go back to where we started previously. How the hell are Michigan and Florida State top 10 teams in the country? I do not comprehend this. I reject the premise. I do not like it. Like what I don't I'm getting frustrated and losing my words, but like I just don't fully understand what about these two teams makes you think that they're top 10 teams in the country. Like looking at these current rosters, like DJU, we've seen he's a good player. He is not a game changer. And I think he is a step back from Jordan Travis in this Florida State offense. Like, I think that they're going to take a step back. They lost so much on both sides of the ball on top of that. Like, that was an experience-laden team. There was a lot of new pieces. Like, I think this team is absolutely going to push back. And we talked about it with Michigan, with all that they've lost, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. Like, I have so many questions about them where, you look at the teams directly behind them: Missouri, Utah, LSU, Clemson, and Tennessee. That's 11 through 15. I would have all five of those teams ahead of those of Michigan and Florida State if it was me doing these rankings.
I don't know about Florida State, but Michigan absolutely. Like I feel confident more with teams 11 through 15's chances of making the playoff. Like spoiler, like I will have Utah and Clemson both like as playoff contenders because that's what they are.
Yeah.
But then yeah, I kind of feel that Michigan, the reason I have them there as like a fringe playoff team is like they're kind of like LSU and Oklahoma a year ago, where like they're like 15, and if you're in that range, you're a contender. So like, but again, not at 9. Florida State, I still haven't figured out exactly how I feel about them a little bit. I think they lost a lot of talent. I think DJU might have a Kenny Pickett year and
Hmm.
fool some people, and so somebody stupid like the Titans will draft him.
That'd be rough. That'd be rough for our fans in Nashville.
That would be rough. Wonder how like he goes in the same quarterback room there with Mason Rudolph and Will Levis, and one of them's eating a shoe, and the other one is getting hit in the head with a helmet.
Yeah, Will Levis with his mayonnaise cologne. What are we doing, guys?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying, man. Like some of the Gen Z, like he should have a broccoli cut. He's just never been outside, doesn't understand shame or embarrassment. Like it's
No.
okay. Like you need to learn when people look at you, they are staring at you and they will make fun of you. And you know, you like I don't care what other people think. I'm like, but I do, and I'm not gonna invite you to my birthday party.
You're not coming to my birthday, that's for sure. With that, you're not eating a banana full skin in front of my birthday, in front of my family.
Yes, that's another. What kind of cake do you have? Oh, I don't need a cake. I've got a banana. Oh my God.
Get out. Just get out.
Get out, just get out. I have a bone to pick with Oklahoma at 16. I don't think they're going to be any good. They're
No.
not going to be a top 25 team. Like I said, I had them going 6-6 initially. They're probably going to go 8-4. They have no business being up there, unless Jackson Arnold is hella good, which is totally within the realm of possibility. But I just don't see it.
No, I think that's a good pull by you. Like, they're ahead of Oklahoma State, K-State, and then you get to Miami and Texas A&M, which I think Oklahoma being in that 19-20 spot with Miami and Texas A&M, I think that would make the most sense because like they don't have the underachiever label that those two programs do, but they do have like the I think limited ceiling that should suppress them in that range. It's kind of actually the antithesis of what Miami and Texas A&M are. They're 19 and 20, not based on the quality of their roster, but based on what we've seen from these programs consistently. Whereas Oklahoma is 16 right now because of what Oklahoma is, not because of what that roster necessarily looks like and what their schedule looks like in the SEC.
Let me put it this way: if Oklahoma was playing a traditional Big 12, Big 8 rival Kansas State this year, K-State wins by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like and very high in K-State. We'll definitely talk about them on a Monday show. But then I kind of look a little bit further down. The one other one that I kind of feel like I got to pick at a little bit is Arizona at 21. Just I don't know what they are. I like
Mhm.
Noah Fafita and I like Teteroa McMillan. I learned how to say that. That's so
Hell
hard.
yeah.
So T-Mac. And I
T-Mac.
like and I like Brent Brennan, but like this is also a program that's a basketball school that they'll occasionally have a really good year about once every decade, and maybe that was last year.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. Like, I'm high on Fafita. I'm high on McMillan as well. I'm high, like, I like a lot of these things this team has, but like, you're right. We don't know what this is going to be. Like, there's been a lot of turnover. There's been a lot of change. We don't know entirely. The one last one I wanted to point out was going back towards the top,
Mhm.
Alabama.
Yeah.
And I understand why you would have Alabama as the fifth ranked team in the country. If you believe that Jalen Milroe is going to take a huge step forward under Kalen DeBoer, which I think is a likely possibility, you think that this Alabama team is going to be good. I think people, and I'm going to keep preaching this throughout the season. I think people are underrating what the drop off on the defensive side of the ball is going to be. We are talking about two guys who have not been coordinators or defensive coaches at this level. We're talking about a defense that lost its like basically its leader in Caleb Downs on the back end of the defense. We're talking about a secondary that lost both Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry at cornerback. We're talking about a front that lost Dallas Turner and a bunch of other veteran guys up front. Like there is a lot of turnover, and we're also turning over the staff. We're losing some of the recruits in the transfer portal. I think this defense is going to take a step back. And in what the SEC looks like this year, that could be absolutely enough to knock them out of playoff contention. I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to be the case, but like having them at the fit as the number 5 team in the country going into the season feels way aggressive given the amount of unknowns that we know about or that we have with this team.
I still would have had them top 10, but not at 5. Like
Yeah.
I feel like if we did like our top 10, I would have Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Texas 4. I feel pretty good about that. Those are the same 4 for you, maybe a little bit different order, like Oregon's 2, Texas
No,
is
no,
3.
honestly going into the season, I would have that exact same ranking.
5, I would have gone Penn State, maybe Ole
Okay.
Miss, Notre Dame. I would have had them 5, 6, 7. 8, probably at that point, what you're looking at, like probably like Utah or something like that.
Yeah.
9, 9 would have been like maybe Alabama's 9 or something like that. But again, I don't see how they're 5. Like I don't see that happening right now
Yeah.
because like if you're 5, you should be a playoff lock, and I don't think you are. You're a playoff contender.
Yeah, no, I think that 8 to 10 range, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like that 8 to 10 range, I'd have been so much more comfortable with that. And I know that sounds like I'm splitting hairs, but I think like we view Penn State, we view Ole Miss, we view Notre Dame as virtual locks. Maybe not like the locks that the top 4 are, but like they're gonna have to royally screw up to not make the playoff. Alabama, on the other hand, and I think the teams in like that 8 to 10 range that we're talking about, you kind of have to prove yourself to get in there because like you're in that position where if another team like an LSU or a Tennessee like makes a jump, then like they can jump you. That's where you are in that 8 to 10 spot right there. So like that's where Alabama should be because I think that's the state of their roster and the state of what this is in a post Nick Saban world.
Yeah, like I said, they're the same. Although I have them beating Mizzou, they're the same level as Mizzou, kind
Mhm.
of there with like Clemson and LSU. Like they're very firmly a top 12 team right now. They're just not 5.
Exactly. Exactly.
But this is episode 100. We've got one more segment here, and I think we're gonna have a little more fun here. We're just gonna talk about the show, some of the segments we've come up and everything over time here with guys remembering bits or guys remembering shows or whatever we're
That's
doing here.
right.
Just some of the narratives that we've had with this show have just gone completely off the rails. And I think the first one we have to talk about is Antonio Banderas.
I mean, he's on the title card for the show on YouTube. Of course, we got to talk about our boy Antonio.
Yeah, when we were developing this show last summer, we were like looking for like the equivalent of like our Sickos Bowl. We didn't want to necessarily rip them off, but like, what's a game of the week that like would be like a Sickos sort of game, but like maybe more elevated? Like you want to go to this game, nobody else wants to go to this game, so all you have is your blow up doll from South Park, the Antonio Banderas riding shotgun with you, and somehow, some way, he just became like a party animal. And
Yeah, we developed the character into being a quite the loose cannon, I think is probably the best way to say it. Like you never know what he's going to get into. You never know what kind of trouble he's going to stir up. And Eli Drinkwitz is his best friend. They're BFFs for life. They're texting every day. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where we took a bit and we just absolutely leaned into it entirely, not too much, but like entirely like full 100% wholeheartedly.
Oh, no question. I feel it's the one bit that's created like more like stuff within canon of the show. Like, Eli Drinkwitz being his boy, it helped him with like, with Gundy, it helped develop Kirby, it helped develop a whole bunch of other things. And hopefully not to change the name of it or move him to the title card, but like we kind of want to have a guy that's going to be going to these games with us, metaphorically speaking, that just adds just some of the crazy loose cannon part of college football. Like every Saturday, someone's getting arrested being a clown, and this is kind of like the equivalent of that. So it's been one of the best things we've done, with spring practice, one big holiday, the bowl of the week. Just a spoiler. Week 0, we're going to Dublin with Antonio for Georgia Tech FSU.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm sure the first stop will be the Guinness factory. Like we're definitely headed there. But yeah, I mean, like we've made Antonio the kind of the embodiment of an Ole Miss tailgate in Oxford. Like that's kind of his vibe. That's what he's going for. That's what he's striving for.
With Florida Man Energy. Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
that's been another one. What other things have been good? Definitely, maybe I think is one of the best concepts you came up with. So you're just throwing ball at the dog and just came up with this, and then yeah, that
Yeah.
was mid-season, but it was a damn good one.
Yeah, some of your best ideas, some I don't, I probably am out with the dogs more than I shower, so my shower thoughts happen when I'm out with the dogs. And so I'm sitting there thinking and like there's so many teams that we talk about. Like I think we covered it well today with this show. Like, there's so many teams in college football where you're convincing yourself that they're good, but like, you don't have necessarily the substantial proof that you need. Like, if this was in a court of law, you might not be able to entirely prove it, but you can give your case of why you think these things. And so, like, I think that having something that embodies that, I think makes a lot of sense. And so, the tossy turny, definitely maybe might be kind of good. Like, that's a great way to frame it.
Yes, you're like, I've got this idea, I don't have a name for it. And I look over at my giant wall of CDs, and there's the Oasis's first album, the one with Supersonic on it. It says definitely maybe. And I'm like, just the writing style I have where it can be long-winded, like definitely maybe might be good. Um, but the cool thing about that segment is like we eventually get there and we get it right. Like last year
Hmm.
it was Mizzou. Like they definitely were
Yep.
good. And it changes all constantly. And it's a way to kind of talk about somebody on the come up there. And then we added the whole fact where you're like, where were you or where you're getting high on this team, Bueller? Like it's become one of my favorite segments that we can go to from time to time. I'm very happy that we could do it with the preview, but like it's something we'll probably visit bi-weekly,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
fortnightly.
No, and I think like spoiler alert, I'll go ahead and give the fans what they want. We're going to be doing reaction shows on Saturday nights this season and going live on YouTube as soon as possible after, the main primetime game ends. We'll probably, we're not going to be staying up with the late night Hawaii action, unfortunately for y'all, but I think that definitely maybe after a Saturday, I think that's a good segment to go into there. You know what I mean? Like we can talk about, teams that might have impressed us and like, oh, they definitely maybe might be good. Like I'm sure had we had the segment at the beginning of last season, Colorado would have been like, they definitely maybe might be good. We would have been wrong, but like, that's someone who would fit that bill.
Oh, for sure. Like we would have done this if we'd done this week 0, we would have talked about Notre Dame with Sam Hartman. And we are going to be
Hmm.
doing a show after Florida State, Georgia Tech at mid-afternoon on the 24th. And then we'll be coming to you again after Notre Dame, Texas A&M in week 1. But yeah, definitely maybe it's definitely been one of the best segments we've done.
I've
I know
got
we
I've
got,
got one we need to unpack.
yes.
Our high school mythology at home with the Homer Hickam Rockets. I think that needs to be parsed out a little bit.
I don't know exactly how. I thought it would be funny if we said that we went to high school. Obviously, I grew up in East Cobb, Georgia, and went to Walden High School. Cody grew up in Mills River, North Carolina, and went to West Henderson, right?
Yes, sir.
Or
Yeah,
Henry,
West Henderson Falcons, baby.
Walton Raiders. Yes. Basically, it's the New England Patriots logo with the Furman shield. That's what we kind of got there.
We just straight up
But
have the Atlanta Falcons logo. Like it's literally just the Atlanta Falcons logo, just with red and blue.
yes, that's perfect. So So Cody and I have known each other for about 10 years now. We both started writing on fanside.com. I think you started writing there before me. I was writing on the Atlanta sports blog, ATL All Day, back in like the spring of 2015. And we first kind of
Yeah.
became friends like right around this time in 2015. So like 9 years ago. And we've always had a very playful, just back and forth, whatever it is. I got hired full time before he did. He was managing side now. He's my boss. So we've always just like it can be hard doing this industry, so we just come up with bits. And somehow I'm like, we just need to pretend that we were high school together. And I don't know how we ended up sitting on Homer Hickam or October Sky or the mining. I don't know what we got there. Statesville, we wanted to put it in Statesville. I don't know how we got the mining thing there.
I'm assuming it's probably from Homer Hickam himself. October Sky, a little mythology there. He was in the mining town, but he wanted to be a rocket and we wanted to fly. So, Statesville, USA, we're just trying to fly, man.
Yeah, it's and we will be doing that. We will be doing the third chapter. Probably do that and then put on ice for a little bit during the season. But like we will talk on Monday's show about Lawrence, our strength and conditioning coach. We'll be talking about Bob Lee when he interviewed us, and then we'll talk about the season from hell after Zac Efron.
Oh, dude, the
But
post Zac Efron world was not kind to us, that's for sure.
oh yeah, the other part is so all these people like Zac Efron, Paul Giamatti, Mr. Rogers. I'm a descendant of the Mayflowers, so I'm actually a direct descendant. We're related to the same person, so that's part of it too. And
It's
anybody
all
we think
family, man. It's a
it's
family
all
affair.
it's all family. So really, anything that we think would fit like into the ethos of the show with the idea of Homer Hickam, we just do it because it's just really funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, if like really real peek behind the curtain, it really just shows off our improv skills because I have never once written down a note about Homer Hickam High and our adventures there, and we just kind of throw it back and forth to one another and seeing what we come up with on the spot.
Yeah, like I'll come up with like two prompts and then he'll do one. And it's like this is what we're talking about today, and obviously going with the Fargo intro with it is fantastic. We are gonna I know we're gonna talk about with just like Novocaine to finish the show up there. Like that's special, but maybe some of the other ones out there. I think like Kirby Ghost Hunting. I think people don't understand that. In Sarkeesianitis Land, that was the same episode. That was back in like April or something. I think it was like Sark got paid, and we're like, well, we got to give Kirby something. So like, let's just give him Lake Lanier. Why would he want that? Because that place is haunted. So he's hunting ghosts, and then that's
Exactly. And I think one thing that we do need to, explain for the YouTube viewers, and one of our probably most used segment, I would say, in the entire show, do Host or do Host. And
yes.
I think you can explain it a little bit better, but essentially it's a love or hate thing, but you can explain the details of it.
Yes, when we were developing the show last summer, we were thinking like, okay, we'll make it in blocks and segments like you're seeing now, so we can eventually put this on YouTube and cut it up and everything like that. Touch on a topic between, 5 to 10 to 15 to 25 minutes if it's that important. But it's a way to kind of structure a show, kind of have different ideas that you could put in a different thing. Again, this is for branding purposes. We're both really funny, so that's where we come up with a lot of these names, like it don't mean enough for the SEC, Big Ten Energy for the Big Ten. But I was sitting there, we kind of needed something that's like debate, like a debate sort of thing. And this show is kind of like highly questionable what it used to be or what we try to aim for it. So it's with like, Dan Le Batard's dad with C or no.
See or
And
no?
but we thought it would be funny if you're responding the exact same way. So do Host or do Host. So do Host with one S, DU space HAST means you have me.
Hmm.
Do Host with two S's means you hate me. And that comes from the very popular song by Rammstein back in the late 90s called Do Host. And it's just an awesome guitar riff. It's ridiculous. It's all in German. I don't know what it means, but it's like I'm with this take or I hate this take. So every time it's just you're responding the same way. It's a homonym and everything like that. And it's hilarious. I've tried to do my own spin on that with the Blog and Dirty podcast with blow the whistle or blow the whistle. So it's you're basically saying the same thing. And it's one of our favorite topics that we do because like more often than not, we basically go in different directions, or sometimes we kind of can feel compelled to see both sides of the argument there. And it's sweet, simple, and it's a really good part of the show that I think we always get up for.
No, I think it allows us to cover a lot of different topics pretty easily, and whether do you like this, do you not, and but like it'll never not make me grin whenever the question is do Host or do Host, and we just answer do Host. Like it's just one of the best things in the entire world.
Yes, other things like with the show, like what would you say is the most ridiculous thing you've said? Like I made you laugh. Like I am just absolutely deceased.
I gotta tell you, man, graphic design is my passion. It was an unexpected development that has just absolutely been a joy. We're gonna have the for the YouTube viewers, the Sweet 16 coming up soon, where we take the 16. I think 16 is in the bracket, correct?
Mhm.
the
Yes,
16 best graphic design logos that you've come up with, so the viewing public can really get a good look at these. And but my God, like never saw it coming, and like my job in this was for me to like pick one, and half the time I'm struggling to just like breathe, much less pick one of these. So like, yeah, that's absolutely just it's been a delight, an absolute delight.
I was like, because we were saying like we hadn't done like the like a birthday episode because like when the show just started like for my 34th birthday, I'm literally like across the pond, and also that's some of the joke is like I flying across country, I was so tired I couldn't even figure that out. But yeah, with graphic design is my passion. Like Cody turned 33 there in May, and I'm like, okay, let's do a bracket. He's college basketball is one of his favorite things. I don't know if it is still his favorite thing, but he grew up, he's massive North Carolina Tar Heels fan with the hoops and football as well. So like let's make a bracket, and I'm gonna create graphics because like I don't want to spend any money, but I'm gonna waste some time, which is time is money. But it became something that was just too good, just a way to kind of share some of the bits we have. Maybe we'll put some of these on a shirt, but we're very happy to take you like the final four of each of the four times we've done this, like and put it into the medium, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be wonderful. We're doing that next week, either on Monday or Thursday, depending on how we figure out how to set this up. But yes, graphic design is my passion. Is it's been a I can't believe I figured out how to do that.
Dude, it's absolutely wonderful. I'm gonna throw the question back at you though. What like moment or segment or anything that's just like it just makes it hard for you to breathe, basically.
Honestly, when I'm ad-libbing through Homer Hickam, I can't do it. Like
Oh, dude, it's so hard.
it's so hard. There was one thing you said when we were doing, it was like episode 82, where you said I think that Baylor should be sponsored by the Bryce Davidians. I
Oh
just
my
like
God.
I Cody laughs a little bit more than me. I kind of laugh a little more silently, but obviously you're seeing it right now, and I'm just like, this is, oh my God, it is absolutely hilarious. There was also the bit when we had Adam Weinrib on the show, and he says, there's nothing quite like a midshipman in a blazer during Fleet Week. I'm just like, I was not ready for this.
Oh God. Yeah, honestly, both times that we've had Adam Weinrib on the show, like just the peak of what this show can be. Because Adam Weinrib, like we both fancy ourselves as funny guys. Adam Weinrib puts us to shame. He is one of the funniest individuals that I've ever met in my entire life.
I know we'll get him on the program again too. It's like he's absolutely hilarious. I also loved it when we did the Halloween episode where Thomas Caradante says Ryan Day is like, "Where's your dad?" Lou Holtz or something.
Oh my God. Just
But yeah,
phenomenal stuff.
just phenomenal stuff. Some of the stuff with Scott with Metallica from Just Like Novocaine.
Oh my God.
Good old Jimbo Fisher.
I think that ties in beautifully to wrap a bow on episode 100 too. Like just like Novocaine, I think is just I honestly I think it's our best and our funniest segment, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like so it stems from, for those who don't know, remember the Titans. Herman Boone, played by Denzel Washington. They ask him about his playbook and they say, mighty thin playbook. He goes, I run 6 plays, just like Novocaine. Give it time, always works. And so we were like, all right, we had a Remember the Titans episode with Mark Powell, which was phenomenal in itself. Lessons that we can take from that movie. But we were like, we can spin this into something else, something more. And we're both music lovers. We both, go back to the classic rock or, I mean, we have different tastes in some capacities, but we also have a lot of similar tastes. So taking 6 songs from different bands and just applying them to college football gives us a little pop culture reference, but it's good stuff, man. Like, I think in terms of like segments that are for sure to just get us laughing and not like really almost get off the rails every single time, just like Novocaine is top tier.
I forget which one we did to start with. I think we did the Foo Fighters first. And we did that.
Yeah.
Well, this is somewhere around like the 40 or 50 episode. And then we've done ones like we've done Sublime, we've done Blink-182, we did Dookie, we've done Eminem, we've done CCR, we did we're gonna do Phil Collins. We just did 90s one hit wonders. But I think the best one we've ever did was without question the Fall Start 73 tour for Almost Famous,
Oh my God,
where
yes.
we picked like stuff from the soundtrack there, and some of the ones we had on there, just the Tiny Dancer bit. You're like, yeah, Drake's a Tiny Dancer, and then Now she's gonna be always with me. That's Dan Lanning's rib tat, and then Jesus freaks out in the street. That's Dabo Swinney. It's a great way for us to really like rack our brain and kind of give like these coaches personalities. Occasionally, we'll do universities. I don't think we've ever gotten to the point where we've really done a player, maybe occasionally, but like because it's kind of a mean-spirited segment, but it's also really funny.
It's only mean-spirited if you take it that way. Like I think of it as fun. Like I think one of the general premises of the of this show that we should that everyone should definitely take to heart is that we're not mean-spirited people. Like we have opinions, and like when we get going, when we get rolling, when you wind us up like a little wind-up toy, we're probably gonna say some things that are just absolutely wild. But like I don't like we understand we're talking about 18 to 22 to 26-year-old kids. Thanks, Cam Rising. But like we understand like these are kids a decade younger than us, and like we're going to give them a chance to be kids. We're going to give them a chance to grow and things like that. And we're never actually mean spirited. Like it's all said in jest, even if it does come off as mean spirited.
I think it's also like it's college football. It's dumb. It's the dumbest, funnest, most best sport in the world. Like anything could happen. The conferences aren't the same size. They don't play the same amount of conference games.
Yeah.
There's all these weird pageantry and traditions. There's all these weird trophies. Again, and you're banking on these kids with not fully formed brains out there trying to get it done. People dedicate their whole weekends here. And just like I loved going to the University of Georgia, just like I know you loved going to the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. Although
Oh yeah.
there's not football there, but it's this it reminds us when we were younger and about how truly dumb we were before we even got into the writing. And it's just kind of like an opportunity for us to kind of go back and be like, oh man, I wish I was 20 something again.
Dude, shouts to Corey Smith. Wish I was 21.
Oh yeah. I wish this episode wasn't over, but it is. This was episode 100 of False Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle 20. Like, rate, you can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube now, anywhere there's
Mhm.
podcasts and video. Yes, we're still trying to figure out the video thing. We'll be clipping some of these things at some point once we figure out to do it. Again, this is just a do it yourself sort of podcast that just fits the ethos here, man. It's just been so much fun.
Dude, DIY, we're grinding it out. Yeah, I would not describe us, despite us working on the internet, as the most tech savvy human beings on the planet. Um, Struggle with my phone daily. I feel 100 years old every time it happens, but it does happen. So us battling YouTube is going to be an adventure. But hey, we got the first episode up on YouTube. It looks good, so that's a win there, and we'll grow from there.
We're gonna keep growing the show like we're growing our hair out, man.
That's
And this is
right.
and this is false start.